My name is Michael Heavey. I have been duly sworn upon oath and say I am over 18 years of age and competent to testify to the matters herein. I am the CEO of an innocence organization by the name of Judges for Justice. I've been involved in the law as a lawyer, legislator, and/or general jurisdiction trial judge since 1976. I was born in 1946 and I live in Seattle, Washington. I have studied and lectured on wrongful convictions. In 2013, I taught a continuing legal education course of 1.5 hours on wrongful convictions that was carried nationwide on a webcast. I have read the 4 expert reports on the Tapp case published on our organization's website. I have spent hundreds of hours viewing and editing the 9 Tapp interrogations and 4 of the 7 polygraph videos, and reading the interrogation and polygraph transcripts. I've spent hundreds of hours studying police reports, the autopsy report, immunity and cooperation agreements, trial transcripts, DNA reports, witness statements, and other documents that are relevant to Tapp's case. If I voice an opinion, it is on a more probable than not basis. It is based upon my experience, research, and particular study of the Angie Dodge murder and Chris Tapp conviction. Chris Tapp's attorney, John Thomas, has asked me to prepare this video affidavit. Some of the audio is difficult to hear. It is best to listen with headphones. I am solely responsible for the transcription of the audio. The listener should verify for themselves if they feel the transcribed audio is inaccurate. The purpose of this video affidavit is fact support for Tapp's 4th verified petition for post-conviction relief filed by his attorney, John Thomas. The petition asserts that Tapp's trial defense was denied the videotapes of 3 polygraph examinations. The petition asserts the unproduced polygraph videos show Tapp being coerced into changing his stories. Also, it asserts that had the trial judge seen the videos, he would have been compelled to suppress the Tapp interrogations. To that end, this video affidavit has a narrow focus: to offer facts probative of coercion. Tapp was subjected to 9 interrogations. They were conducted on the following dates: 1/7/97, 1/10/97, 1/11/97, 1/15/97, 1/17/97, 1/18/97, 1/29/97, 1/30/97, 1/31/97. Tapp was given 7 polygraph examinations. It appears that 3 videotapes of polygraph examinations were not provided to Tapp's defense prior to trial, those being the 1/10/97, 1/15/97, and 1/30/97 exams. The polygraph examinations of Tapp were given on the following dates: 1/10/97, 1/15/97, 1/18/97, 1/29/97, 1/30/97, 1/31/97, 2/1/97. Over a period of 26 days, from 1/7/97 through 2/1/97, Tapp gave 6 separate and distinct stories. They were: story number 1, 1/7/97. Tapp denies any knowledge or involvement in the Dodge murder. Tapp denies any knowledge of his friend Ben Hobbs' involvement. Story number 2, 1/10/97. Tapp states that Ben Hobbs told him that he had killed Dodge, but Tapp did not believe him. Story number 3, 1/17/97. Tapp states he went to Dodge's apartment the night of the murder with Ben Hobbs. Hobbs and the victim argued. Hobbs attacked her with a knife. Tapp is frightened. He runs away and hides. When Hobbs leaves, Tapp re-enters the apartment and sees the victim's dead body. Story number 4, 1/18/97. Tapp states he went to Dodge's apartment the night of the murder with Ben Hobbs and a third man, Jeremy Sargis. Hobbs and Sargis argue with the victim. Hobbs and Sargis attack the victim. Tapp sees Sargis and Hobbs commit horrific sex acts on Dodge. When Hobbs and Sargis start stabbing the victim, Tapp runs away. When Hobbs and Sargis leave, Tapp re-enters the apartment and sees the victim's body. Story number 5, 1/29/97. Tapp states that it was not Sargis at the crime scene, but a third man with Tapp and Hobbs. Tapp cannot remember the third man's name. During the assault of Dodge, Hobbs asks for help in controlling her. Tapp holds her down. Story number 6, 1/30/97 and 1/31/97. Tapp states that Ben Hobbs threatened to kill Tapp unless he participated in the crime by cutting Dodge. Tapp is afraid for his life and cuts her across the right breast. At 29 minutes into Tapp's first interrogation on 1/7/97, Tapp tells story number 1. He knows nothing about the murder or Ben's involvement.
I mean, I'm going to be straight up and truthful with you. If I did anything know about this, I would say, but I do not know. That's honest truth. I'm not lying. I'm not going to shave his ass. It's not even trying to save my ass anymore. It's just going to bring out the truth.
Tapp's stories change 5 times until he tells story number 6. Story number 6 is that Ben Hobbs threatened to kill Tapp unless he participated in the crime. Tapp was in fear for his life, so he cut the victim across the right breast. On 1/31/97, the 9th interrogation, Tapp tells Detective Curtis Stacy of the IFPD that Ben would have hurt him if he didn't participate in the crime.
Lord, you have no doubt in your mind whatsoever that Ben would harm you if you did not participate, or is that true?
Very true.
8 minutes later, Tapp says he cut Angie across the breast and her shirt was up. Story number 6 is that Tapp cut the victim across the breast because Ben threatened to kill him unless Tapp participated in the crime.
Okay, so the cut you made was across the breast. Yes. Was her shirt up or down? It was up.
Per the autopsy report, the victim's shirt was down. Tapp confessed. There is no doubt. But how does Tapp go from story number 1, I don't know anything, to story number 6, I cut her because Ben threatened to kill me? Tapp told 6 stories. He changed his story 5 times. Each of the 5 changes was preceded by a polygraph examination with Detective Steve Finn of the IFPD, sometimes with the participation of Sergeant Jared Fuhriman. Tapp was not represented by an attorney for the first polygraph of 1/10/97. During the subsequent polygraphs, Tapp was represented by attorneys, but they were not present for, nor did they view any of the polygraph examinations. On 1/7/97, Tapp's story number 1 is he knows nothing about the crime. 3 days later, 1/10/97, Tapp changes to story number 2. Ben Hobbs told me he killed her, but I didn't believe him. Story number 2 on 1/10/97.
So he's pissed at you because you didn't believe him?
Yeah, he thought it was, I thought it was a big joke. I always thought it was a joke.
Why does Tapp change to story number 2 on 1/10/97? Let us look at what preceded the change. It includes the polygraph of 1/10/97. On day 1, 1/7/97, without any indication of any knowledge of the crime, Sergeant Fuhriman tells Tapp he might be able to get complete immunity.
What happens if I talk with the prosecutor to see a possible complete immunity from you, for you, complete?
Still on day 1, 48 minutes into the 1/7/97 interrogation, Tapp repeats that he knows nothing about Ben's involvement in the Dodge murder.
I didn't know. If I did know, I'd say something. I didn't know he did it. If he did it. Okay? I didn't know nothing. I don't know where he was at. Nothing.
3 days after the first interrogation, Tapp presents himself for a polygraph examination. The Idaho Falls Police Department polygraph examiner is Stephen Finn. It is 1/10/97, a Friday. Tapp is asked questions about his involvement in the murder of Angie Dodge. Tapp denies any involvement. After the test, he's told by the polygraph examiner, IFPD Detective Steve Finn, that he is deceptive. Tapp is told he might be looking at being charged as an accessory to the murder of Angie Dodge with a sentence of life in prison or the gas chamber.
You know an accessory is that's being charged just like the person did. They get life in prison, gas chamber.
Tapp claims that he failed the polygraph because he is scared. Detective Finn tells Tapp that the reason Tapp is scared is because subconsciously he remembers the crime.
Chris, you're using it. I'm not. I'm really not. I wish I could remember. I can tell by your reaction, man. I'm scared. You're scared. The reason why is because you subconsciously remember.
Sergeant Fuhriman enters the polygraph room. Tapp tells Fuhriman and Finn that Ben told him he went and saw Angie, but Ben didn't tell him he killed Angie. This is true. Ben told people that he hoped the police would not find his fingerprints at the crime scene. 2 nights before the murder, he had gone over to visit Angie at her new apartment with Christian Grebstad, Angie's ex-boyfriend. The visit was Monday night, June 10th, 1997, 2 nights before Angie was murdered. Tapp does not appear to remember that Ben's visit was 2 nights before the murder. Fuhriman tells Tapp he's up to his eyeballs with Ben.
You told me you went and saw her. You didn't tell me you killed her. You did tell me you went and saw her.
That's a start. Let's go to that point.
I didn't ask.
No, wait a minute, Chris. Angie Dodge was killed, and you didn't ask? I mean, come on. I mean, you got some serious heat flying around at the time. Of course you did. Of course. I mean, you're up to your eyeballs with it, man.
15 minutes later, in this 1/10/97 polygraph, Sergeant Fuhriman tells Tapp he could be charged with conspiracy. Fuhriman is off screen, but we hear his voice.
Right now, Chris, you can be charged with conspiracy, which means basically Idaho law states that if you're convicted of conspiracy, okay, you take the same punishment and the same fall as if you actually did commit the crime itself. Okay, I'm telling you where you're at, my friend. Okay, I'm trying to be as upfront and honest with you as possible.
Tapp trusts Fuhriman. Tapp rarely challenges Fuhriman's statements. Tapp is a 20-year-old high school dropout who has known Fuhriman since junior high. Fuhriman tells Tapp about the polygraph. The machine doesn't lie.
As Detective Finn stated, the machine doesn't lie, and he's one of the best.
Tapp is crying through much of the polygraph. After the threats, Fuhriman tells Tapp that they can help him. They need a plan for Chris Tapp.
Okay, Chris. Yeah. We need to try to help construct a plan. Okay, for Chris Tapp. See what we can do to try to help you. Okay. You know the burden and everything that you're feeling. Okay. We want to try to help you with that. All right. And we can't help you.
I'll say help myself.
After the polygraph, Tapp is taken immediately into an interrogation room. Fuhriman promises Tapp that he's going to work with Tapp.
I'm going to be here to work with you. Okay? I'm here all the way with you. All right?
After a break, Fuhriman and Tapp are both happy. there's no record of what happened at the break. Perhaps Fuhriman repeated the possibility of an immunity agreement for Tapp.
Okay, when this is over, you owe me dinner. Okay?
Where do you want to go?
I don't care.
Mine is,
But
pick
no.
a spot.
You owe me dinner.
Okay.
When this is over. Actually, we probably owe each other dinner, don't we? Okay. Let me get my notebook.
Tapp comes up with story number 2. Tapp states that Ben told Tapp he killed Angie, but Tapp didn't believe him. He thought it was a joke.
So he's pissed at you because you didn't believe him?
Yeah, he thought it was, I thought it was a big joke. I always thought it was a joke.
The 110-97 polygraph examination was not provided to the defense prior to Tapp's trial. It shows Tapp being threatened with being charged as an accessory to murder by Detective Finn with a penalty of life in prison or the gas chamber. This is followed by Sergeant Fuhriman threatening Tapp with conspiracy to murder with the same penalty as if he committed the crime itself. Tapp is crying, sniffling, wiping tears off his face during the polygraph. Tapp's story number 2 is that Ben told him he killed Angie, but Tapp didn't believe him. He keeps that story for a week until he tells story number 3 on 1/17/97. On 1/17/97, a new story number 3 is, Tapp and Ben Hobbs went to Angie's apartment the night of the murder. Tapp sees Ben attack Angie with a knife. Tapp is frightened, so he runs away. When Ben leaves, he returns to the apartment to see Angie's body on the ground. Tapp writes out this story number 3 in a written statement on 1/17/97. On page 4 of the 5-page statement, Tapp writes, "Went after Angie. At this time, I think Ben grabbed a knife out of his pockets and stuck her with it. I got scared because Ben was losing or out of control, like he was someone else. I didn't know what to do, so I ran out as fast as I could. I waited until Ben left before I went back to see if I could do anything. It was too late. I saw her lying there in her own blood, and no movement to her, no breathing, no nothing. I left again." Why does Tapp change to story number 3 on 1/17/97? Let us look at what preceded the change. It includes the 1/15/97 polygraph. It is now day 3 of Tapp's interrogations. 1/11/97, a Saturday. Tapp is sticking with story number 2. Tapp was arrested about 9 p.m. on 2 felonies. One is accessory after the fact. The second is harboring a fugitive. Tapp will spend the next 6 nights in jail. The clock on the wall is about 10:20 p.m. Tapp and Fuhriman are waiting for Tapp's attorney and a deputy prosecutor to show up. Fuhriman's tunnel vision that Ben Hobbs is the killer is shown in the next segment. The police, thanks to Tapp, are going to take Ben and drop kick him through the goalposts of life.
Bottom line.
If I would have done this earlier, I would.
Well, not only that, but I want you to seriously think what I told you in the car, okay?
Okay.
That little bit extra you got, we're going to be able to take Ben, and we're going to drop kick him through the goalposts of life. Okay, I'm serious as a heart attack.
It is still late on Saturday night, 1/11/97. Tapp denies he was at the crime scene, but Fuhriman suggests Tapp may have been there, and Tapp's mind may have shut down on him because the crime was so brutal. Deputy Prosecuting Attorney John Schinderling and Tapp's attorney, Kurt Taylor, are present.
But if I would have known,
And I understand that.
I wasn't there. I mean,
You would have done it, I would have done it, we all would have
I
done it. We
wasn't
would've stopped
there.
him.
I wasn't even down the fucking stairs. I wasn't nowhere around. I know this. Promise to God, I know this.
Okay. You know, every time we approach the subject, you know, you kind of,
Man,
well, you kind of, you know, and it wasn't good up there, Chris.
I wasn't there.
No, all I said it wasn't good up there.
I mean,
And so
the
I
way
don't
I
blame
think you're
you
telling
for-
it to me is like I was there.
The mind doesn't, it shuts down on all of us.
Well,
Okay? It's just like me. On some of the brutal stuff that we see out on the streets. Seriously, hear me out. Some of the brutal stuff we see on the streets, my mind shuts down on me because I don't want to remember it. Okay? And as John was saying, this may be the case here with you. Okay?
It is now Monday, 1/13/97. Ben Hobbs is being interviewed in Ely, Nevada, where he is under arrest for rape. Ben denies any involvement in the crime. Ben says that if Angie was raped, his DNA will prove his innocence. We are still 4 days away from Hobbs' DNA report. The audio is difficult to hear.
Was she raped and then she's killed?
Tell me, was she raped?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you, because if she was, my DNA will prove my innocence right there.
It is now Wednesday, January 15th, 1997. It is day 4 of Tapp's interrogations. The judge has approved an immunity agreement that provides that Tapp is free from prosecution on 2 conditions. The first condition, Tapp has to tell the truth. The second condition, Tapp cannot be involved in any violence or sexual assault of Angie. Tapp remains in his story number 2. Ben told him that he killed Angie, but Tapp didn't believe him. During this 1/15/97 interrogation, the police are conveying to Tapp 2 themes. The first theme is that they believe Tapp may have been at the crime scene, downstairs, waiting for Ben, who was upstairs with Angie. Tapp denies being at the crime scene.
I wasn't there. It would just be horrible. I wasn't there. No.
And I'm not saying you were. Okay.
That's
I'm
what
not.
it sounded to me. As
No, no, I'm
trying
not.
to put me there.
The second theme is that it is okay if Tapp was at the crime scene, because Tapp has an immunity agreement that protects him from prosecution. Both of these themes are repeated about 5 times. Detective Brown informs Tapp that as long as Tapp didn't participate in the crime, it is okay if he was there.
If in your mind, if you were there, you're thinking, oh man, I'm in deep trouble now. Man, I'm in deep trouble. I'm in deep trouble. As long as you didn't have anything to do with what was going on there, you have no more trouble
Then I'm right.
than you are now.
Almost 2 hours into the 1/15/97 interrogation, Tapp is unsure. Maybe he was downstairs at the crime scene. Or maybe he is just picturing himself there because of all the stories he had been told. Tapp states that if he was downstairs, he just doesn't remember it.
And see, that's my problem. I don't know if my pain is because I just pictured myself there. When he's telling the stories. I don't know if I pictured myself there or if I was downstairs. I just don't know. Even my mind, I just don't remember that. I wish I could.
Immediately after this day 4, 1/15/97 interrogation, Tapp is taken into another room for a polygraph examination. Tapp has an immunity agreement that provides he's free from prosecution on the condition that he tells the truth. Tapp believes that the polygraph will determine whether or not he's telling the truth, which in turn will determine if he remains free from prosecution. We will see video segments of the 1/15/97, 1/18/97, and 1/30/97 polygraphs that show exactly how the police fake the polygraph results and exploit Tapp's naivete. We will see how Tapp changes his stories to conform to the polygraph truth. The polygraph truth is in reality a ruse and only reflects the particular police theory of the day. During the 1/15/97 polygraph, Tapp is first told by Detective Finn that the polygraph will determine if he is telling the truth.
I want you to understand one thing. These are detailed questions about the incident, about what's going on, to see if you're telling me the truth.
2 minutes later, Detective Steve Finn tells Tapp that the polygraph chart will tell us what has been suppressed.
We'll know on this chart here in a few minutes what's suppressed.
27 minutes into the 1:15:97 polygraph, Tapp is told he is deceptive, not telling the truth.
I got a question. How'd I do on that one? I mean, because you already asked that one once, didn't you?
Well, I don't grade that one, but you show a hard reaction. What does that mean? It means you're hiding something. Your deception.
At about 28 minutes into the 1:15:97 polygraph, Tapp has been told many times that he is being deceptive on his answers. Tapp tells Finn that he is a wreck. In my opinion, he sees his immunity agreement slipping away. He emotionally asks, "If I was there, I'd remember it, wouldn't I? Wouldn't I remember it? That's my thing. I don't remember it."
Regarding Angie Dodge being killed, were you in the apartment at the time she died? No. Okay, these questions. You doing okay?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
I'm a wreck. You know that, but
I mean, that's my thing. If I was there, I'd remember it, wouldn't I? Wouldn't I remember it? That's my thing. I don't remember it.
Detective Finn is asking 4 questions during the 1:15:97 polygraph exam. To each question, Tapp answers no. The 4 questions are: did you go to Angie Dodge's apartment with Ben Hobbs the night of the murder? Did you see her being killed? Did you see her die? Did you see her body on the floor of the apartment before the murder was reported? Finn tells Tapp that he will soon show Tapp the polygraph charts and explain his conclusions in detail.
Will you tell me at least what I did good, or?
I'll show you. I won't turn around. You have to turn around. I will explain it to you. Like I told you, we're in over detail.
Finn and Tapp are going over the charts, and Finn is pointing out where Tapp's blood pressure goes crazy again, and his GSR goes nuts.
We go into seeing Angie Dodge's body on the floor of her apartment before the murder was reported. Blood pressure goes crazy again. GSR goes nuts.
After going over the charts together, Finn tells Tapp, "There's no doubt in my mind that you were at the apartment."
Promised him I would not badger you or talk to you about the case if you were talking about it. I'm going to explain what all that means to you. There's no doubt in my mind right now you were in the apartment.
At 49 minutes into the 1:15:97 polygraph, Finn tells Tapp that the polygraph is telling him that Chris was in the apartment with Ben and Angie. Ben goes wacko. Tapp is wiped out and says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." He then says to Tapp, "I think you left the room at that time because you didn't know how to handle it."
You're in his apartment. You see him go wacko here, knock her down, and start basically killing her. You go whacked out saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." I think you left. I don't know if you came back or not. I think you left the room at that time. You didn't know how to handle it.
For a second time, an emotional Tapp declares, "But wouldn't I remember it, though? That's my thing. I would remember. I would remember that. Anyone would."
But when I remember it, though, that's my thing. Remember. I would remember that. Anyone would.
In response to Tapp's distress that he can't remember being there, Finn tells Tapp, "Sometimes your subconscious can block it out."
Sometimes you're subconscious. Block it out.
Finn tells Tapp, "On the charts, you're telling me, it's saying to me, you were there." In other words, Finn is reading the charts and Tapp's subconscious is telling the polygraph the truth. Tapp was at the crime scene.
On the chart it's saying to me, you were there.
The day 4, 1:15:97 polygraph is over. The next time Tapp is interrogated is 2 days later on 1/17/97, a Friday. Tapp makes another change to his story. Tapp's story number 3. Tapp went to the apartment with Ben. Ben argued with Angie. Ben attacked Angie with a knife. Tapp is frightened and he leaves the apartment. He comes back after Ben leaves and sees Angie's dead body. Tapp's story is similar to what Detective Steve Finn concluded in the polygraph charts 2 days earlier. Went after Angie, and at this time I think Ben grabbed a knife out of his pockets and stuck her with it. I got scared because Ben was losing or out of control like he was someone else. I didn't know what to do, so I ran out as fast as I could. I waited until Ben left before I went back to see if I could do anything. It was too late. I saw her lying there in her own blood and no movement to her, no breathing, no nothing. I left again. 52. Let's look ahead for a moment to the 1/18/97 polygraph. In the first 46 seconds of the 1/18/97 polygraph, Finn goes over the 4 questions from the 1/15/97 polygraph with Tapp. According to Finn, Tapp was deceptive when he denied 1. Going to Angie Dodge's apartment the night of the murder with Ben Hobbs. 2. Being in the room when she was being killed. 3. Seeing her body on the ground before the murder was reported. But Finn did not see deception when Tapp denied seeing her die. The following is the transcription of the first 46 seconds of the 1/18/97 polygraph. Remember the day before, 1/17/97, Tapp had changed to story number 3. Finn and Tapp are going over the previous polygraph of 1/15/97. Finn: you killing Angie Dodge showed deception, but... Tapp: I didn't kill her. Finn: you didn't kill her, and then we went over being in the apartment. Tapp: showed deception. Finn: seeing the body on the ground. Tapp: showed deception, but took care of all that. Finn: and then we go over the part of being in the room when she was being killed. You show hard deception. You were there. You already admitted that. Tapp: yes. Took care of it. Finn: but when she actually died, I don't get that reaction. Okay, it's telling me you either turned around, left the room, went outside, downstairs, whatever. The first 46 seconds of the 1/18/97 polygraph leaves little doubt and is proof that Tapp's story number 3 is a product of the 1/15/97 polygraph ruses. His story number 3 has been conformed to Finn's statements during the 1/15/97 polygraph, is made to pass the polygraph, and is an attempt to remain free from prosecution. The police now know that they have been successful in manipulating Tapp's testimony. They will continue these ploys and manipulation of his testimony in the 1/18/97 and 1/30/97 polygraphs.
Actually, you killing Angie Dodge showed deception, but I didn't kill her. You didn't kill her. And then we went over being in the apartment at the time.
So deception,
seeing the body on the ground. You were there.
So deception, but took care of that.
And we go over the part of being in the room when she was being killed. Can you show hard deception? You were there. You already admitted that.
Took care of it.
But on when she actually died, I don't get that reaction. So it's telling me you either turned around, left the room, went out
outside, downstairs, whatever.
Let's return to 1/17/97. Tapp finishes writing out a 5-page statement about noon, which is story number 3. Tapp went to the apartment with Ben. He saw Ben attack her with a knife. Tapp runs away, but returns after Ben leaves to see her dead body. After the written statement, there is a lunch break. After lunch, Detective Ken Brown is seeking corroboration of Tapp's story number 3. But there is little, if any, corroboration. Tapp doesn't know where she lives. He doesn't know the layout of the apartment. Tapp can only remember that he saw blood. About 2:20 p.m. on 1/17/97, Fuhriman and Brown show Tapp a crime scene photo to see if it might jog Tapp's memory. About 25 minutes after Brown and Fuhriman show Tapp crime scene photos on 1/17/97, lead detective Ken Brown learns from Pam Markham at the state lab that neither Ben Hobbs nor Chris Tapp matched the semen DNA left at the crime scene. Pursuant to Ken Brown's report, it is about 2:45 p.m. on Friday, 1/17/97, that he has this phone call with Pam Markham. Tapp has just told story number 3. Tapp went to Angie's with Ben Hobbs and he saw Ben attack her with a knife. However, the police now have a problem. Ben Hobbs and Chris Tapp do not match male DNA from the crime. The next day, 1/18/97, Tapp will change to story number 4. Tapp went to Angie's apartment the night of the murder with Ben Hobbs and a third man, Jeremy Sargis. Hobbs and Sargis argue with her. Sargis and Hobbs commit horrific sex acts. They start killing her, and Tapp runs away. He returns after Ben and Jeremy leave to see her dead body. Why does Tapp change to story number 4 on 1/18/97? Let us look at what preceded the change. It includes the 1/18/97 polygraph. It is a critical point in time when the police learn that Tapp and Hobbs are not a match for crime scene DNA. In about a 25-minute period on 1/17/97, Sergeant Fuhriman comes up with a new theory. A third man was at the crime scene with Ben and Chris. The third man is Jeremy Sargis, Hobbs' best friend. In the next few segments, we will see Fuhriman begin to maneuver Tapp to change to story number 4. Fuhriman and Brown are surprised and puzzled to learn that Hobbs does not match the crime scene DNA. During the afternoon interrogation of Tapp on 1/17/97, about 2 minutes after receiving the DNA information, the clock on the wall is 2:47 p.m. Fuhriman asks Tapp if there could have been a third man with Chris and Ben. Fuhriman asks if Jeremy Sargis was there. Tapp says no.
Let me throw this one out at you. Okay. Could there have been anybody else up there? Could there have been? Was there another person that went with you and Ben?
No, it was just me and Ben. So the only other person that ever hung out with us was Dare.
Okay.
And Dare was off with April.
Okay.
Or the Amanda.
All the above, I think.
So many women that you choose from.
So could Jared have been there?
After walking out of the interrogation room, Fuhriman returns. Fuhriman tells Tapp, "It looks like Jer was probably there at one time." An incredulous Tapp asks, "How could he have been there? I would remember Jer being there, wouldn't I?"
It looks like he probably was there at one time,
Yeah. How could he have been there? I remember Jared being there, wouldn't I?
I would think.
Fuhriman tells Tapp that new evidence is showing there was probably a third person involved.
Apparently, new evidence is starting to come out that there's probably a third person involved.
that's fine. I mean,
Late on 1/17/97, Fuhriman tells Tapp that he's doing a whale of a job. But there are critical missing puzzle pieces. There's another person involved.
So we're just missing some puzzle pieces here. That is all. You know,
that's cool.
I mean, you've done a well of a job. You really have, Chris. But we're still kind of apparently we're still missing some pieces here. And really,
Are they big pieces? Or
yeah, pretty big pieces because, like I said, the information we just got sounds like there's probably another person involved. Okay, I mean, and that's pretty critical, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Tapp has been in jail the last 6 days. In the next segment, Tapp is telling Fuhriman he is not going to cover up for anyone because he has a great deal, his immunity agreement.
It is. I mean, but I'm not trying to cover up for nobody. But I got a great deal.
Yeah, you've got a great
I
deal.
got an outrageous deal, and I ain't going to screw that up.
That's pretty important.
Right there, and I ain't going to screw that up. I mean, they're all talking about me. They can go home tonight.
It is still late afternoon on 1/17/97. Tapp is aware that his immunity agreement is conditioned upon being truthful. Fuhriman continues to tell Tapp there is a third person involved.
There's a third party there. Third person's involved. Okay. And I want you to think long and hard about it. And, part of the agreement.
It's being straight up honest and truthful with you. And that's what you.
As the 1/17/97 Day 5 interrogation ends, Fuhriman sums up the evidence for Tapp. He tells Tapp that we know Ben, Chris, and Jer are at the crime scene.
There's a third party involved. You got Ben, you got Chris, you got Jer there.
On page 8 of Sergeant Fuhriman's police report, there's no mention of the 1/17/97 events. He gives an account of the 1/15/97 events. He then skips to a detailed account of the 1/18/97 events. He does not mention that on 1/17/97, Tapp told story number 3. He does not mention that on 1/17/97 they learned from the state lab that Hobbs and Tapp were not a DNA match. In his 1/18/97 entry, Sergeant Fuhriman notes that Tapp came in for a polygraph and Finn notified us that after the first chart, Tapp admitted that Jeremy Sargis was in the room at the time of the crime. Tapp was told the afternoon before, on 1/17/97, that there was evidence of Jeremy Sargis being at the crime scene. In this polygraph of 1/18/97, Finn will complete the manipulation of Tapp to change to story number 4. Finn starts by telling Tapp that we need clarity as to who was there with Chris and Ben.
Tell me the other person who's there so we can get it cleared up. Then I can run this and we can get that out.
Maybe Jer was.
4 times during this 1/18/97 1-hour polygraph, Tapp will state he doesn't remember seeing Jeremy at the crime scene. 1 minute and 40 seconds into the polygraph, Tapp says to put Jeremy in as the third person at the crime scene.
So it's you, Ben, and Jeremy.
Let's just put Jer there.
4 minutes into the 1/18/97 polygraph, Tapp states that he put Jeremy as the third person because I just put Jer there because I have to remember somebody else.
I just put Jer there because I have to remember somebody else.
16 minutes into the 1/18/97 polygraph, Detective Finn goes over with Tapp the main question. Was Ben Hobbs, Jeremy Sargis, and yourself at Angie Dodge's apartment when she was killed? Tapp states that he is speculating that Jeremy was there.
It was Ben Hobbs, Jeremy Sargis, and yourself at Angie Dodge's apartment when she was killed. Not died, when she was killed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember?
I'm speculating that Jerry was there because. So I'm gonna go yes on that.
Okay.
This is Tapp's third polygraph. He has failed his previous polygraphs. 24 minutes into the polygraph, Tapp is told that he is telling the truth about Ben Hobbs, Chris Tapp, and Jeremy Sargis being at Angie's apartment when she was killed. Finn points his finger at Tapp and says, "Finally, you are telling 100% of the truth on that part." Tapp is delighted that he passed the polygraph.
I want you to look at something. There's a question of was Ben Hobbs, Jeremy Sargis, yourself, and Angie Dodge's apartment when she was killed?
Yeah.
Tell the truth. Finally, you are telling 100% of the truth on that part.
Even though Detective Finn told Tapp he was telling 100% of the truth on that part, Finn writes in his polygraph report of 1/18/97 that Chris scored out at +1 with a +5 needed for truthful and -9 needed for deceptive. Chris showed inconclusive for the charts with leaning towards truthful. We will never know what Tapp was thinking in January of 1997. But there are indicators in the next segment that Tapp believes that the polygraph can read his mind. Tapp has just finally passed the polygraph. Finn asks Tapp what he was thinking when he answered the question. Tapp states that he finally remembered Jeremy being at the crime scene. Then Tapp asks an interesting question. "Did it show what I was thinking?" Finn responds by telling him how accurate the machine is, why it is so valuable, and points at the chart.
When I asked was Ben Hobbs, Jeremy Sargis, and yourself at Angie Dodge's apartment when she was killed, what popped into your mind?
You honestly want to know? I just finally remembering that Jerry was there.
And it did pop in that you pictured him actually being there.
Yeah. Did it show what I was thinking?
Let me show you something. Here's how accurate this instrument is. Here's a question. Okay. You're doing great. All of a sudden, after I've already asked a question, you're talking seconds, 2 or 3 seconds. Then you start going up. But over here, your blood pressure is right down to normal. You hardly even move on your GSR. For earlier in life, you're going worse. Okay? But all of a sudden here, just your blood pressure, the GSR goes up because you thought of something. And that's why this instrument is so valuable, especially on a truthful person.
In spite of just telling Finn that he saw Jeremy at the crime scene when he answered the question, almost immediately Tapp states, "I just never remembered seeing Jer there."
Remember seeing Jerry there?
Finn tells Tapp that the charts are telling him that Tapp was not present when she died and Tapp was not involved in the actual stabbing of Angie. So the immunity agreement sticks.
You were not right there when she died. And you, yourself, were not involved in the actual stabbing of Angie. That part of you, there's no doubt in my mind. Okay. So you've got nothing to worry about there. Okay. The agreement sticks.
The 1/18/97 polygraph ends with Finn pointing at the chart with Tapp standing right next to him. He tells Tapp he is telling the truth.
There's no movement here. That's stigmatic quality. You're telling the truth.
The Saturday 1/18/97 polygraph is over, and Tapp proceeds into an interrogation room with Sergeant Fuhriman. Tapp will now tell his fourth separate and distinct story. It is similar to story number 3 the day before, but now a third man is added, Jeremy Sargis. On 1/18/97, Tapp's story number 4 is that Ben Hobbs, Jeremy Sargis and Chris Tapp went to Angie's apartment the night of the murder. Ben and Jeremy argue with Angie. Ben and Jeremy attack Angie. Chris is frightened and runs away. Chris comes back to see Angie's body after Ben and Jeremy leave. It is almost identical to the day before, except Jeremy Sargis is added. In the next segment, Fuhriman is repeating part of Tapp's story number 4.
Things are getting a little bit heated. Jared's involved too. He's telling her, you know, why'd you say this? And,
Right, trying to defend Ben.
okay. If at any time I'm missing anything, please jump in.
35 minutes into the 1/1897 interrogation, Fuhriman adds a new topic. He suggests to Tapp that he may have seen some horrific sex acts. When Fuhriman keeps pressuring Tapp, he responds that they made her do forcibly sex.
And that's the part that's so ugly, isn't it? Yeah, sure it is. So, okay, let's open up the door just for a minute, okay? Let me in, okay?
I'm trying.
Alright. So, what'd they make her do?
Well, I guess it's just forcibly sex.
Okay. You saw them forcibly have sex. Is that correct? And that's before they cut her? Okay. So they basically raped her. Is that correct? Okay. Who raped her?
In the interest of the court's time, I am not going to describe the horrific sex acts that Fuhriman leads Tapp through. It is only important to note that it was part of story number 4. After Tapp's 1/1897 story number 4, he is out of custody and he does not see the police for 11 days. He next sees the police on 1/29/97. On 1/29/97, Tapp changes to story number 5. Tapp says in his 5th story that Jeremy Sargis was not at the crime scene with Ben Hobbs and Chris, but it was another man. Tapp cannot remember his name. Tapp held Angie down because Ben asked for his help to control her.
You told us in the house that you were there, you're the one that held her down, but Ben asked you to kind of help. Is that correct? Okay.
Why does Tapp change to story number 5 on 1/29/97? Let us look at what preceded the change. It includes a polygraph of 1/29/97. It also includes Fuhriman and Finn taking Tapp to the crime scene without the presence of Tapp's attorneys. There's no video or audio recording of the crime scene visit. Also, according to the testimony of Detective Finn, there was videotape of the 1/29/97 polygraph, but it was not saved, even though police protocol required videotaping of all suspect contacts. On Monday, 1/27/97, the police learned that Jeremy Sargis is not a match for crime scene DNA. Here is a copy of lead detective Ken Brown's report of 1/27/97. The police now have another problem. The crime scene DNA does not match Ben Hobbs, Jeremy Sargis, or Chris Tapp. On Wednesday, 1/29/97, the prosecuting attorney for Bonneville County, Kip Manwaring, angrily tells Tapp that he is a liar and that his immunity agreement is rescinded. Tapp is not told any specifics of why he is a liar. Manwaring tells Tapp that he is not going to jail. According to Sergeant Fuhriman's report of 1/29/97, Tapp was brought in because it was found that part of his statement involving Jeremy Sargis was false. Fuhriman's report also noted that Tapp took a polygraph, and during the polygraph, Tapp wanted to go back to Dodge's apartment. There is no recording of this event and the interaction between the police, Finn and Fuhriman, and Chris Tapp. Finn and Fuhriman were alone with Chris Tapp for the polygraph, the ride to the crime scene visit, and the ride back to the police station. Tapp's attorneys were not present. No camera was watching Finn and Fuhriman. Did they coerce Tapp? We may never know. At a 2012 hearing, Tapp claimed Fuhriman threatened to kill Tapp as they were walking up the stairs of the apartment. According to Tapp's 2012 testimony, Fuhriman told him something like, "We ought to do to you what you did to Angie, take you out to a field and shoot you." Jared Fuhriman denied that he threatened Tapp. However, Detective Steve Finn testified that Tapp's claims were correct. Fuhriman did threaten to shoot Tapp. On 2/29/12, Finn testified under oath, in part. DPA Bevilacqua. Did Detective Fuhriman at any time say anything to that effect while going up the stairs? Finn. Kind of, yes. I can't. From what he said in his statement here about shooting him, I remember Mayor Fuhriman laughingly say, "You know, I guess we could take you out and shoot you." And all three of us laughed about the whole thing. After the 1/29/97 polygraph and crime scene visit, Tapp is interrogated by Fuhriman. Fuhriman starts by telling Tapp that the prosecutor has told Fuhriman a few things. The first thing that the prosecutor told Fuhriman is it looks like Tapp never left the apartment.
Now, talking with the prosecutor. Okay. First of all, more than likely you never left the apartment.
Tapp hasn't been told yet that his statement about Jeremy Sargis being at the crime scene is false. The second thing the prosecutor has told Fuhriman is that it looks like Jeremy Sargis was not at the crime scene. A surprised Tapp asks, "Then what happened?" Notice how Fuhriman does not respond to Tapp's question and talks over Tapp. Third of all,
Second of all, Jeremy Sargis, there's a dang good chance he wasn't there. The third thing the prosecutor said is that another person was involved that Chris Tapp has not told us about. Tapp acts like he has no idea who this third person is. Third of all, there's definitely another person involved that you haven't told us about. There's definitely another person involved that you have not told us about. Okay. The evidence has borne that out.
3 minutes into the 1/29/97 interrogation, Fuhriman threatens Tapp with going to prison.
Okay, right now, the way it looks, you're going to jail and then prison. Okay.
He said I wasn't going to jail?
Not today. Okay, because he understands the medical things that's going on in your dad's life and everything else. Like I say, he's a compassionate man, but...
After Fuhriman threatens Tapp with prison, he tells Tapp that he can possibly get another immunity agreement, even if he cut Angie.
Now, in talking with him, hypothetically, if Chris Tapp was holding on to Angie as she was being cut, and then some other stuff was going on, or if Chris Tapp took part in the knife in any way, shape, or form in cutting her, okay?
But I didn't.
Would you listen?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Hypothetically, I said.
Okay.
If you took part in any of that, that's okay. Because you're still here, you're still showing some good faith that you want to cooperate, and the prosecutor will reconsider another possible, exactly.
Right.
So, if Chris Tapp was involved in any way more than what you told us, which it sounds like you possibly were, okay, to some degree, okay, a new contract could possibly be constructed.
4 minutes into the 1/29/97 interrogation, Tapp remembers that during his last polygraph, he was told he was telling the truth. Tapp asks Fuhriman, "But why would I pass the lie detector test then, Jared?"
Right. But why would I pass the lie detector test then,
You
Jerry?
didn't. You have not passed the lie detector test.
I passed the last one?
No, you did not pass the last one.
To the contrary, Tapp was told he passed the last lie detector test. Let's look at what happened 11 days earlier during the 1/18/97 polygraph.
I want you to look at something. There's a question of was Ben Hobbe, Jeremy Sargis, yourself, and Angie Dodge Department which is killed. Finally, you are telling 100% the truth about that part.
And a second time, 11 days earlier, at the end of the day 6, 1/18/97 polygraph, Tapp was told he was telling the truth.
If we'll move it here, testing medic quality. You're telling the truth.
Next, during the 1/29/97 interrogation, Tapp claims he is a scapegoat because he is the only one being questioned. In response, Fuhriman tells him 4 times in 11 seconds Chris was at the crime scene. Is Fuhriman reinforcing what he told Tapp during the visit to the crime scene?
Until other people come forward or whatever, I'm basically the main, what's the word, I guess proper way I want to put it is probably scapegoat or...
No, you're not a scapegoat. You were there. I mean, you're there. You're not a scapegoat, Chris, at all. You're there. You're up to your eyebrows and all this. Okay. I mean, you were there.
After 6 minutes of the 1/29/97 day 7 interrogation, Fuhriman tells Tapp there is evidence that Tapp was at the crime scene. Hobbs was at the crime scene. Sargis was at the crime scene, but also evidence that a 4th person was there.
We've got evidence on a crime scene that shows that there was another individual there. The evidence has shown that it was not only Hobbs or Sargis or Tapp. There's a 4th person there. Okay, the evidence is showing. Chris Tapp was there. Chris Tapp know who that other person is.
Tapp is unable to name the other person at the scene. Again, Fuhriman tells Tapp he was at the crime scene.
Well, something's there because you're not giving up that other person, Chris.
I would if I could, Jared, I would. Jesus Christ, I would. But I know I can give you every goddamn name in the book.
The facts still remain, and they are facts. It's not probable cause, but it's facts.
Right.
Chris, you were there. Another person was there.
In total, Tapp is told 9 times in the first 8 minutes of the 1/29/97 interrogation that he was at the crime scene.
We know you were there during the whole time. I mean, things just aren't adding up.
At 9 minutes into the day 7, 1/29/97 interrogation, Fuhriman, for the first time, accuses Tapp of lying about Jeremy Sargis being at the crime scene. Fuhriman is speaking softly.
But I'm trying to tell you, Chris, the door is closed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so evidence shows that there's a 4th person there or a 3rd person. We can't even prove that Jeremy was there. For all we know, that was a lie that you gave us. That you screwed with us about. And that, let me tell you, my friend, we put a lot of time and effort in that lead, running down Jeremy and doing DNA and stuff like him. I don't know if you realize how much DNA costs, but it costs some serious money.
Perhaps Fuhriman is speaking so softly because he is afraid that Tapp will remember that 12 days earlier it was Fuhriman who first put Jeremy Sargis at the crime scene. Tapp does not respond to Fuhriman's accusation of lying about Jeremy Sargis. Sergeant Fuhriman, for a second time within a minute, accuses Tapp of lying about Jeremy Sargis being at the crime scene. This time, his accusation is aggressive, loud, with his finger pointed at Tapp. Is Fuhriman putting on a show for his superiors who are angry about the Jeremy Sargis wild goose chase?
Chris, you told us
Jeremy Sargis was there. You not only told us that he was there, but he took an active part in it. Now we're finding out that Sargis probably wasn't there and that you were screwing with us.
It was Fuhriman, however, that first introduced Jeremy Sargis being at the crime scene 12 days earlier. It was just after learning on 1/17/97 that Hobbs and Tapp were not DNA matches. Let's look back to the 1/17/97 interrogation.
It looks like he probably was there at one time, yeah.
Yeah, how could he have been there? I remember Jerry being there, wouldn't I?
I would think.
Also, let's look back to the 1/18/97 polygraph when Finn tells Tapp he is telling the truth when he says Jeremy was there.
I want you to look at something. There's a question of was Ben Hobbe, Jeremy Sargis, yourself, and Angie Dodge Department was just killed. Tell the truth. Finally, we're telling 100% of the truth on that part.
The 1/29/97 accusations of lying continue. The lead detective, Ken Brown, is angry at Chris Tapp. Everyone feels Chris Tapp screwed with them big time. This evidence is offered to show the animus directed at Tapp. No one but Fuhriman and Finn is aware of what has happened during the polygraphs. No one in the prosecutor or police offices is aware that the creation of Jeremy Sargis as a suspect came from Sergeant Fuhriman and Detective Finn, not from Chris Tapp.
Ken Brown is pretty ticked right now. You know, everybody's kind of hammered at Chris right now because we felt that we got screwed big time.
In the next segment, Fuhriman refers to the crime scene visit with Tapp. Fuhriman asks Tapp if Ben asked ya to kinda help to control Angie. It is 27 minutes into this 1/29/97 Day 7 interrogation. This is story number 5.
You told us in the house that you were there, you're the one that held her down, but Ben asked you to kind of help. Is that correct? I said, okay.
Because Tapp has admitted to being at the crime and holding Angie down, he is arrested and charged as an accessory to murder. This is story number 5. The next day is 1/30/97, and we will see Tapp changes his story again. Story number 6. Ben Hobbs threatened to kill Tapp unless he participates in the crime. Tapp was in fear for his life and cut the victim across the right breast. Why does Tapp change to story number 6 on 1/30/97? Let us look at what preceded the change. In particular, the polygraph examination of 1/30/97. As the 1/30/97 polygraph begins, the police theorize that Tapp is not naming the third man because he will implicate Tapp in the murder beyond what Tapp has admitted. The 1/30/97 polygraph begins by Detective Finn threatening Tapp with a charge of murder in the first degree. It carries a punishment of death or life in prison with no parole.
You're already there. You're already looking at the possibility of getting charged with murder 1, which max penalty is death, or minimum penalty is life imprisonment with no parole.
Then Finn tells Tapp there is a way out of this dilemma. He can avoid the death penalty if Tapp was afraid for his own life. They could go with a different charge rather than life imprisonment or death.
Or if you were forced to do it in fear of your own life. That's a different story. Now we're talking that you either did it or die. Okay, or you were forced into it. So they could go with a different charge rather than life imprisonment or death.
Throughout this 1/30/97 polygraph, Finn is attempting to get Tapp to say he stabbed Angie. His logic? Once Tapp says he stabbed her, there is no downside to naming the third man. Tapp will have fully implicated himself in the violence that killed the victim. As the polygraph session proceeds, Tapp is told many times he is reading deceptive on his polygraph charts when he denies stabbing Angie. At 48 minutes into the polygraph, Tapp is frustrated.
Can I move? No, I did it wrong again.
49 minutes into the polygraph, Tapp cannot understand why he is failing. That's what comes to my head. Was my head wrong? Why is my head wrong?
Because that's what comes in my head. Was my head wrong? Why is my head wrong?
The two previous segments are evidence that Tapp believes the polygraph knows the truth and he does not. This is some evidence that Tapp has adopted the belief that his subconscious has blocked or suppressed the memory of the brutal crime. But the polygraph can read his subconscious. Tapp denies 8 times that he cut Angie. 53 minutes into the polygraph, Tapp denies again.
Did Ben Hobbs make you cut Angie Dodge?
No.
In response, Finn tells Tapp that in order to get a truthful reading from the polygraph, he needs to say that Ben threatened to kill him unless Tapp stabbed her.
What I'm talking about, so we clarify it soon, we can get a truthful. I'm talking about Ben Hobbs actually giving you that knife and saying, cut her, stab her, or I'll kill you.
Tapp continues to be frustrated at his inability to pass the polygraph. Finn asks each issue in pairs of questions. Each question in the pair is slightly different than the other. At 54 minutes into the 1:30:97 polygraph, Tapp offers that he is going to answer one of the paired questions yes and the other one no. Finn asks Tapp why he would answer one yes and one no. Tapp responds, "I don't know, because right now everything I've been saying, what I think is right in my head, has been wrong. So, I mean, why don't I put one no, one yes, and one of them has got to be right. All right? Now I'm having doubts about myself, and that's understandable because everything I think is right in my head, it's been wrong. I'm just having doubts." Tapp is crying during this portion of the polygraph.
So I want to make sure this question is very clear in your mind.
Can I put one no, one yes?
What did he say?
No, I'm just out of shame.
What do you mean the one no, one yes?
I don't know, because right now everything I've been saying, what I think is right in my head, it's been wrong. So, I mean, why don't I put one no, one yes, and one of them's got to be right. All right, now I'm just having doubts of myself, and that's understandable, because everything I think is right in my head, it's been wrong. I'm just having doubts.
At 59 minutes into the 1:30:97 polygraph, Finn tells Tapp that he needs to save his life. He needs to say that Ben and the other guy threatened to kill him unless he stabbed Angie. In the last 7 seconds of this segment, Tapp is wiping tears from his face and sniffling.
I'm a cop. I shouldn't be saying this. But I've gotten close to you. I've gotten to know you. And you're not an asshole. You're not one of these crumbs that could go out and do that. But you gotta protect you gotta save your life. Period. You've gotta save your life. Sure, you got deeply involved. You got forced into doing something you didn't want to do. And you're worried about going into life. What your hope is right now, that's the only hope, is to get it out. Get it proven that, hey, I didn't want to. My God, I was stuck there. I had 2 guys who were going to hurt me. They were going to kill me. I was afraid of my life. She was dying. I did this. Don't protect them just for that fact. I'm not talking about protect them so they don't get caught. Protect them so they don't get
Finn continues his efforts to get Tapp to say he stabbed Angie. He explains the advantages of such a confession. Notice at the end of this segment, Tapp will take a deep breath of capitulation to Finn's suggestions.
The make say Chris Tapp was very reliable. He told us everything. He was cooperative. Sure, you may have to serve a long time. But you tell me which is best. Serving quite a long time, and I can't tell you how much. It could be 2 years, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, 25 years. But is that better than life or death? One of them, guarantee you, is life, and the other one's going to be death. Protect your moments, and that's between you and I. Because, like I said, I wouldn't say this if I believed you were a cold killer. You got trapped.
Finn and Tapp take a break. When they come back, Finn is hooking Tapp up to the polygraph. Tapp is saying, "This is trying to help me out." Finn assures him that he will do everything he can to help Tapp.
This is just trying to help me out.
That's all I'm doing right now is I'm trying to help you from being in prison. And I give you one solid promise from me. I can't promise you it'll reduce it. But I will do everything I can possibly do to get your attorneys and prosecutors to help you to keep from getting life or death. I can't promise it whatsoever. All I do is tell you that I give you a promise I will do everything I can to help you.
Tapp is hooked up to the polygraph and answers yes to the question if he stabbed Angie because Ben threatened to kill him.
Did Ben Hobbs force you to cut Angie Dodge across the right breast with the knife, or he said he will kill you? Yes.
Tapp has failed on all previous charts in this 1:30:97 polygraph. After he answers yes to cutting Angie across the breast, he states, "I hope I get this one right." Does he believe the polygraph knows the truth? He cut Angie?
I'm so glad I can get this one right.
Finn doesn't tell Tapp that he passed the polygraph, but he acts like it. Note the two-hand hearty handshake of Finn and Tapp's look at him in response.
Okay. Did I do it?
Give me your hand.
In Detective Finn's 1:30:97 polygraph report, he notes that Tapp was deceptive when he said that Ben threatened to kill him unless he stabbed Angie. Chris scored -4 with a -3 needed for deceptive. Tapp proceeds from the polygraph to his 1:30:97 day 8 interrogation. A new detective, Curtis Stacy, is now substituting for Sergeant Fuhriman and doing the interrogation. It appears Detective Stacy has been cued to ask Tapp if Ben, or the third guy, Mike, has threatened Tapp to do something so that he's a full part of the crime. Tapp responds that yes, Ben threatened him.
What I'm thinking is, Ben's cut her. Ben's raped her. Mike's raped her. I'm thinking maybe, do these guys threaten you to do something to her so that you're a full part of the crime?
Yes, sir.
And who does that threat?
It's Ben.
What does Ben say to Mike, to Chris?
He says to cut her, do something to her. Because I guess they wanted me into it up to my eyeballs with them. I was already up to it anyway, but...
This is Tapp's sixth separate and distinct story, his final story. On 1:30:97, story 6, number 6, is that Ben threatened to kill Tapp unless he participated in the crime by cutting Angie. Tapp does not know the third man's name. The next day, 1:31:97, Tapp knows he's looking at being charged with murder and the death penalty unless he can name the third man. Tapp has just reacted truthful on one man's name. Apparently, Tapp believes the polygraph knows the truth. He tells Fuhriman that he has finally figured out how to read a polygraph after doing it so much. This is a measure of proof that Tapp believes the polygraph knows all. It knows the truth. His subconscious, which has blocked out his memory of this brutal act, is being read by the polygraph.
That's what I see.
No, I don't.
No, hold on. Let me go on with what I'm saying. Okay?
All right.
That's what I see. That's how I feel. I mean, I can't lie. I mean, because I finally figured out how to read a polygraph after doing this so much. And that's the first time anyone's asked me about his name. Anything else? And it was off the school. Some deception out there was no.
It appears that prior to trial, Tapp's attorneys were not given the polygraph videos of 11097, 11597, and 13097. They were given the polygraph videos of 11897, 13197, and 2197 prior to trial. The 12997 seventh polygraph was started then stopped at some point prior to going to visit the crime scene. The 12997 polygraph was videotaped, but the decision was made to not keep the videotape in evidence, and it was presumably discarded. It was standard operating procedure to videotape all polygraph examinations in 1997. All other interrogation and polygraph videos are in evidence. It is my opinion that Tapp was coerced and his free will was overborne. If the trial judge had been shown the 11097, 11597, and 13097 polygraph videos, he would have been compelled to suppress the Tapp interrogations, except for the 1797 interrogation where Tapp told story number 1. I don't know anything about the crime. This ends my affidavit.